So today's session is titled Getting Started with PowerOLAP, and I welcome everybody on this first of 4 sessions. We'll take a quick overview of what PowerOLAP is and how it fits into your business. As I said, there are 4 sessions. The second session is normally on Wednesdays, the third on Thursdays, and the fourth on Fridays. These sessions are conducted twice per month at 10 a.m. and at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please do join us, register for them if you haven't done so yet. There is in the materials area, there is 2 documents, the Quick Start Manual, which I suggest you download if you haven't done so yet. We will be looking at that document today as well. It works with PowerOLAP Personal, the software that I hope you've downloaded and successfully installed on your machine. And the other document contains the links to all of the 4 trainings. So if you haven't registered yet, please download that Word document with the links and do register for the other training opportunities. So our agenda for today is to look at PowerOLAP, an overview of PowerOLAP, both the PowerOLAP interface and then the way that it works with Excel. Well, we'll actually start with Excel examples during the demo. Towards the end, we'll be looking at the content of the Quick Start Manual. And if we have time, we'll do some of the exercises that are included in the Quick Start Manual, at least at the beginning of the Quick Start Manual. So let me give you first a quick PowerPoint presentation. Who are we? Paris Technologies. Paris has got nothing to do with a city. It stands for Planning, Analysis, Reporting, Information Systems. We pride ourselves, if I go to the next slide, unlike other business intelligence tools that can do historic reporting and real-time reporting, we pride ourselves to be looking, assisting companies to manage the future of their business in order to do strategic planning for the future, budgeting, forecasting, reforecasting. That is where our tool set really shines. Apart from being able to do dashboarding, normal reporting, multi-dimensional reporting, which I will show you today as well. But really, if you want to understand where your business is going into the future, then you should be talking to us and certainly joining us for the other presentations or trainings from tomorrow to Friday onwards. Have a look at this slide. People normally think that the place where our tool will fit in is in the finance department, yet yes, absolutely, we do fit into the financial department. But then, as I'll show you in another slide later on, it is very good to use it to assist executives to do their long-term planning, this strategic analysis. And then very typical, I think, on a second after finance, we do a lot of sales applications for companies, but have a look at these other ones: purchasing, distribution, HR, marketing, production, customer service, and IT. These are all areas where you can use PowerOLAP very effectively. So it is, as I say, it's not just a financial tool. So the real problem that we solve is a technical problem. After you've installed your ERP system and your CRM system, and you've got dashboards in your business intelligence tool that you might have already purchased, and after you've been able to do self-service reporting with a tool like Power BI from Microsoft or Tableau, then What remains is that people still make their decisions inside Excel spreadsheets. Very often, people take the data out of these dashboarding tools that IT departments install for them and put the data into Excel so that they can work with it. That is what we find in most companies, that people do not discard Excel spreadsheets as our competitors often advise them to do. So our competitors will often tell you that the moment that you stamp out Excel and start using their tool, then your life will become heaven on earth. And it's in the real life scenario, it's actually not like that. Because of the problem that I've told you before, that people want to work in Excel. But the problem with Excel is that once you start working with more than 2 or 3 dimensions, and you have to start linking Excel spreadsheets together, then it becomes a very cumbersome exercise. And it is at the point where such an Excel spreadsheet system, what we call spreadsheet hell, when such a system starts falling over, that companies contact us and say, don't you have a better solution than the way that we are currently working with Excel spreadsheets? And that's where we then come in with our tool set. For managers, we solve the problem that they do not have a technology that really supports them to do the work that they do normally. And for IT, we give them a centralized database where they can store all the numbers that are being used by the Excel users on their desktop. So we make out of Excel, we turn it from a personal productivity tool into a enterprise productivity tool, because it enables collaboration. That's the most important word. If you take a normal Excel spreadsheet and you enter a value in that spreadsheet, nobody other than yourself knows about the change that you made to that spreadsheet. And if you want other people to know, then you have to send them that spreadsheet, or it needs to be put on a central network where people can download the spreadsheet from. With PowerOLAP, you will see the updates are instantaneous. And therefore it enables people to collaborate via the PowerOLAP database in the back end with each other in real time. So just to take it a little step further, at the bottom of this pyramid, you'll see the general staff who works with operational systems, your CRM system, your GL systems. These systems are based on relational database applications, where they store information in relational tables like in a SQL Server or Oracle or SAP HANA. And the type of decisions and reporting that can be retrieved from these relational applications are very detailed. So I can, for instance, say, I can get the information, how much do we owe a specific distributor for us, for our company, or how much does a specific client owe us. That's the type of information that you can get from these operational systems. The level above that, which we call management, their job is really to control what happens in the business in the real and the current time. They need to create a budget for the next financial year, and then they need to control or compare the actuals with the budget as the year goes on. And while the year goes on, they want to typically reforecast a number of times during the year in order to get as close as possible to the outcome of what they perceive for the future inside that financial year. Then at the top of this pyramid, we're talking about the executives who typically in Excel spreadsheets create on a very freely designed structure 5 or 10 year plans where they take data very often in a summarized way from management's reports that obviously come from the operational systems, and they work in these spreadsheets and create their view of the future. And if they want to communicate it back, they have to send those spreadsheets which are not connected with the budgeting and forecasting sheets that management uses. So there's a disconnect at all three levels inside Excel, and that is the problem that we address. This is the basic infrastructure of PowerOLAP. So we'll have different operational systems. Sorry, I want to go back here. We'll have different operational systems that sits in a relational database. The data sits in relational databases. Typically, we build a data warehouse like inside a SQL server, and then PowerOLAP, this multi-dimensional database, will through a function called OLAP Exchange, which we will shortly talk about at the end of the presentation. We'll pull the data into PowerOLAP from where the data gets distributed into Microsoft Stack or onto the web. And what I want to show you is the arrows that are bidirectional. In other words, not only can we send data to the end user, but we can also receive data from the end user. And it's also possible to write data back into the data warehouse. So let's jump into demonstration. Here is the PowerOLAP interface. We're going to look at that shortly. But first, let's look at the end product. This is what an end user would typically be working with. And I'll show you how easy it is to create a spreadsheet like this. So here you have on the left-hand side an example of a budget spreadsheet for a specific region. So if I change the region here from United States to a different region, what happens when I double-click on the cell is I can access what we call a hierarchy, a hierarchical structure which aggregates into different aggregations and eventually into total regions. So if I want to look at Australia's values, then I click on Australia, and if I want to look and compare it on this side, there is Asia Pacific, there's Australia. So you can see the values comparing here for the product key, 101 keyboard is the same value as that value over there. And we are looking here at the 101 keyboard. We're looking on both sides, we're looking at the account sales, but I can change the region, I can change also the account. So let's look at the difference between sales and cost of sales. And then of course I can look at budget and variances. We don't have any budget values in there yet. That's what we'll look at the next two spreadsheets. But what I want to show you is that it is possible to manipulate this data in various ways. Let's go back to actuals. And one of the things that I want to point out is that all of the Excel functionality that is available in Excel does not go away. In fact, it interfaces seamlessly with PowerOLAP. So this is why I have got this graph over here, which you saw updating automatically. The way that we connect with a database, the PowerOLAP database in the background, is with these special formulas. In this case, this one is called an OLAP database formula that connects you with the background database, which is stored in a specific location. The other type of formulas that we have got here is the OLAP member formula. There's actually 160 of these formulas that enable you to manipulate data inside Excel that comes from and gets sent back into the PowerOLAP database, which we will look at just now. This here is a formula that brings a matrix of data through for all of these products and for all of these months, as well as then for the specific scenario, account, and region. So on the spreadsheet, you have got a total of, let's see, there's about 30 regions, 30 times 3 accounts times 3 scenario members. So 30 times 3 times 3, that's the number of reports that you've got access to in this one spreadsheet. The typical Excel comparison, you would have multiple sheets at the bottom here for each of the different reports. So what this sheet really is a template with this structure that allows you to select different scenario, account, and region combinations. So let's close these two and look at a typical budgeting scenario. So what I want you to imagine is that on the left-hand side, you see a spreadsheet that is being used by, let's say, the Hong Kong manager. And on the right-hand side, you will see a general manager. Let's say this manager sits in London, and both of these sheets are connected in the back end to the same PowerOLAP database. And let's jump now into PowerOLAP and create something that looks like this so that you can see how it all fits together. So I'm going to create from my budget cube, I'm going to create what we call a slice. And I'm going to rearrange the slice so that we've got scenario over here and products over there and regions. That's a good view. We're going to go down to January. So this is the comparative view, you'll see, of the spreadsheet on this side. Now, let's assume that the Hong Kong manager is now going to capture for net sales all of these products, and that manager types in a value, makes a mistake and types, instead of 16,000, types in 660,000. And that value, immediately you can see the value for desktop being updated in both of these spreadsheets. Now the value doesn't jump, or the spreadsheet doesn't update from each other. What happens is, in the background, both are connected here with, now I must just get to the right point. So here is Hong Kong. That's the value that I've input over there. Already you can see that the variance is being calculated in real time. And now let's say the general manager in London sees that the Hong Kong manager has made a mistake there and types something in. So good point here to note is that PowerOLAP allows not just numbers, but also text values to be captured into the database, which is not all that common in multidimensional tools. So then our Hong Kong manager can change it back to 16,000, and this is a way that managers then can communicate with different personnel. So if we go back here, you'll see that these values have actually been captured into this central database. Now, what about the variance? Let's calculate the variance. Let me take you into the cube area where we're going to write a formula. So we've already got one formula that pulls in the actuals from the financials cube into the actual member in the scenario dimension for the budget cube. So we're looking at the budget cube at the moment, and I'm going to write a formula for the variance percentage, and that is going to be equal to the variance. Let's do that on a new row, divided by the actual. And of course, I would test first with the if conditional statement. I would test whether the actual is a 0, and if not, then make it equal to 0, which I'm not going to do now to save time. But let's press F9, and you'll see that the value has been calculated here. And if I jump back into Excel, you'll see that the values have been calculated over here as well. So there's my 3.77%. That is a quick introduction to how PowerOLAP works with Excel and works with PowerOLAP as a database in the back end. I'm going to close this database, and we're going to look at the Quick Start manual, which I've got open over here. So this is what I advise you to download if you haven't downloaded, because it will really assist you in starting to create your own database and create your own dimensions in a manual way, which I think we're going to have time to do briefly, and then adding members and dimensions and creating hierarchies, creating weighting inside the hierarchies, which we will have time to hopefully show you as well, creating cubes and slices inside PowerOLAP, arranging views inside the PowerOLAP interface, which is what tomorrow's training will be about, and then various manipulations of the slices inside PowerOLAP, and then exporting the data into Excel spreadsheets and entering data in the Excel spreadsheets, as you've seen me doing. And then finally at the end here, there is a section about OLAP Exchange, which I want to mention briefly. So you might be very eager to use PowerOLAP to connect to your own data. And this is what this exercise at the end of this manual takes you through. What you need is setting up an ODBC driver. In this exercise, we have used a standard SQL Server example. I think it's called the Northwind database, which you can download from Microsoft's website. But you can use your own data source as well. The most important thing before you start working is that you create an ODBC driver, a link, a data source name between your data source and PowerOLAP, and then go through this exercise that will help you to create dimensions and then bring the data into PowerOLAP automatically. What we are, however, going to do is I'm going to open up PowerOLAP again, and then open a blank database. So you'll see that this database contains no dimensions, and therefore it contains no cubes as well. And what I'm going to do is first create a new dimension called accounts. Now, this is not the typical way that you would create dimensions. The most typical way would be through OLAP Exchange, which is what we just spoke about. But for the purpose of this exercise, you will see how PowerOLAP goes about to create also the OLAP Exchange cubes in a very fast way. This is just a slow motion way of how PowerOLAP creates dimensions and then cubes after that. So we're going to say this is going to be sales and cost of sales and margin, and maybe we'll have time to write another formula. So there are my 4 account members in the account dimension, and I'm going to create a hierarchy out of using margin as my aggregate and using sales and cost of sales as my children of margin, and making cost of sales a negative value. It won't be displayed as a negative value. It will simply be subtracted from sales in order to calculate margin. So that's my first dimension. My second dimension is going to be the regions dimension. We're going to quickly create some regions. Let's say USA, Canada, North America, United Kingdom, France, Europe, and world. So you'll see that the hierarchy can be many levels deep. There's actually no limit to how deep the hierarchy can be. In this case, it's going to be just 2 levels deep. That's how easy it is. Regions, and let's make months as well. And we're just going to do January, February, and March, and quarter 1. Pull quarter 1 over to the hierarchy side, select all of the months, pull them underneath quarter to make them children of quarter 1, click OK. We're going to make this a 3-dimensional cube, and the next step will be to create a new cube, which we're going to call the sales cube. And we're going to use all of these dimensions. That's my cube. Click OK. Now I've got a cube, and then I can take what we call a slice from that cube. And that's what you will see familiar as your familiar Excel spreadsheet view with rows and columns, but with the difference that I have got multiple accounts that I can access in this template. So once I've got a view or a slice like this, I can then create different types of Excel spreadsheets. This is one way. It's called the OLAP read-write method. So what you see here is automatically opening up Excel. There's an add-in here which has got a ribbon of its own for everything that's related to PowerOLAP, and we can immediately start capturing data. So this is going to be 2000 and 3000 and 4000, and there you can see everything has been written back into PowerOLAP. If I go back to PowerOLAP, you'll see the values coming through. Let's switch it around and let's enter some values. And if I go back to Excel, these values will be captured into, if we go to cost of sales, you'll see the values that have been captured over here as well. Now let's quickly write that formula for margin percentage again, and then we'll be at the end of our presentation. So yes, this is the only cube. I'm going to say we want to write the margin percentage formula, and that's going to be equal to margin divided by sales. Semicolon ends the formula. Now, unlike with Excel, all of the formulas in this cube is written in this single interface. So if you want to change the logic of your cube, this is where you're going to do it. And the beauty of this interface, or the curse of it as well, is that if there's one mistake in this interface, none of the formulas will work. So there is an expectation that every formula is written correctly. Now this one formula serves to calculate every single of these calculations that you see over here at all levels. So if I go to France, it'll be calculated for France as well. Actually, that means at every level for each region, for each month, it will calculate, and I only needed to write one formula. So that's the end of our presentation. Let me just take you quickly back to this PowerPoint presentation, do go and visit Parastech TV on YouTube, our channel there. There's lots of training videos there that are not covered in the 4 sessions that you can attend from Tuesdays to Fridays twice a month. But do register first for these that I'm presenting on a bi-weekly basis. That will give you a good start in how to work with PowerOLAP and then go to Parastech TV. So if you've got any questions, please type them in the chat area. I'll wait a moment to see whether anybody has got any questions. And if not, then I'm going to end this call, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I'm looking forward to seeing you in some of the future presentations. I really do. And please download the links to download the Quick Start manual and download the document with the 4 links to these trainings. I don't see anybody asking questions, so thank you very much again, and have a good day. Bye-bye.